各位，幫事務委員會嘅會議，我哋已經有足夠嘅法定人數，以及咧我哋嘅時間亦已經係過咗4分鐘，咁所以我哋咧喺度正式開始啦。咁我哋進入到去議程嘅第一項就係確認通過先前嘅。
Confirmation of minutes of the last meeting. The Secretariat has already made available the minutes to members, and that is there was issued on the 19th of April in relation to the meeting held on March the 1st. As of now, we have received no proposed amendments. Do I hear any proposed amendments? If not, I can take the minutes as confirmed. Thank you very much. Item 2, information papers issued since the last meeting. There were members who wrote in with their request. And I have already made the necessary arrangements. Any questions? If not, then on to item 3, date of next meeting and issues for discussion. Please refer to CB2 1160 bracket 02 for the list of outstanding items for discussion. For June, well, this meeting is very close to the June meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for the 4th of June. I understand I know you understand why this is because of Raymond Wong. So the next meeting scheduled for June the 4th, the administration has proposed some items for discussion. Self-harm by inmates of the penal institutions. That's one item. The other one is the access to record to sex offences or sex offence convictions. All right, anything else you'd like to bring up for discussion for the next meeting? Anything else? If not, that's how we proceed for the next meeting. Self-harm by inmates of penal institutions and also the sex offence convictions for public access. All right, then let's move on to item 4. Mechanism of the ICAC for approval of duty visits outside Hong Kong and reimbursement of expenditure on official entertainment and souvenirs. The ICAC has made available paper CB2 1148 stroke 12 to 13 bracket 01, and Mr. Dennis Kwok, Mr. James To, Ms. Emily LAU, and Mr. Dennis Kwok have put in their submissions together with the fact sheet kindly put together by the Secretariat on the mechanism for approval of duty visits outside Hong Kong. That's FS 26 stroke 12 to 13. Well, with us for this item to assist in our discussion are Mr. Simon Pei, Commissioner of the ICAC, and Mrs. Jenny Au, Acting Assistant Director Administration. Well, as we all understand, the past week has seen the PAC conduct a hearing on this particular case. The relevant person, Mr. Timothy Tong, was invited to attend the inquiry. Today, we were supposed to have the discussion on the 23rd, but due to the filibustering exercise, this was put back to today. All the papers are there on the table, and Mr. Simon Pei is also with us. So perhaps I yield the floor to Mr. Simon Pei, Commissioner of ICAC, to brief us on the paper. And then I throw the floor open for questions and comments. Mr. Pei. Chairman, thank you. Thanks very much, Chairman, honourable members. Thank you very much for inviting me to attend today's meeting and giving me the opportunity to brief members on the mechanism for approval of duty visits outside Hong Kong and reimbursement of expenditure on official entertainment and souvenirs. Recently, Mr. Timothy Tong's a report on Mr. Timothy Tong's duty visit and hospitality expenses raised a lot of concerns among members. So myself and my colleagues would be happy to listen to what members have to say, and we'd like to make available the information. The ICAC is independent of the government establishment. However, the ICAC officers have to abide by all the government regulations and rules applicable to civil servants. We also have the Commission's standing orders. We issue guidelines to officers to make sure that they have to abide by all these rules and regulations. Like when they use taxpayers' money, they have to observe the rule of economy, and if they flout the rules, they will be subject to disciplinary action. Earlier, in terms of preventive education and enlisting public support and so on, the PAC, or the Director of Audit, conducted an audit exercise. In the Director of Audit report, and in the light of the observation and recommendations of the Director, and also in the light of the media exposure, the ICAC has conducted a detailed internal review regarding duty visit and reimbursement of for official entertainment. Now, our rules and regulations are on the basis of government rules and regulations, but there are further rooms to tighten up the guidelines. In terms of overseas duty visits, the ICAC has been abiding by government rules and regulations. All officers engaging in duty visits will have to be approved by the Commissioner. If the Commissioner has to leave Hong Kong on duty visits outside Hong Kong, he has to get the approval of the Chief Executive. On the 6th of May, the ICAC issued circulars to officers to make sure that all the duty visits have to be related to work, and also they will not be approved unless they are in the interest of work, and they have to be related to work, and the duration of the trip should be as short as possible, and the number of people involved should be as small as possible. In relation to official entertainment expenses, the CSO stipulates that it is $300 for lunch and $450 for dinner. Any exceedance beyond this limit should be subject to approval of the Commissioner. However, there are still inadequacies, like in the CSO, it doesn't specify that before and after the entertainment, all the wine, alcoholic beverages, and desserts and so on, they have to be claimed on the basis of the entire meal. In order to achieve equality, we have strengthened our guidelines. Other than the guests, officers must be attending the entertainment must be related to that particular area of work, and all beverages, desserts, and tips should be charged to the same bill, to the same reimbursement application. Now, for official entertainment expenses, they have to be approved by the Commissioner. To make sure that there are checks and balances, the Commissioner's official entertainment expenses, they have to be approved by the Director of Operations. If both the Commissioner and Director of Operations attend the same function, then the Assistant Director of Administration will check the compliance.
Regarding the presentation of souvenirs, the ICAC did not have any laid down rules for the value of the souvenirs. Normally, it would depend on the nature of the function, the status of the guest, and the meaning of the souvenirs. After the review, we've tightened the regulations relating to the presentation of souvenirs, stipulating, first of all, the ICAC officers should, as far as possible, not exchange gifts or souvenirs with representatives of other departments or organizations. Where it is unavoidable, the officers only present one souvenir inscribed with the ICAC logo, and that no personal gifts or souvenirs should be given to guests. It has been reported that over the past 5 years, the ICAC has spent millions of dollars on souvenirs. According to the information we have obtained, this is not true. In order to avoid misunderstanding on the part of the public, I'd like to make some clarifications. In April this year, in preparing materials to answer members' questions relating to Mr. Timothy Tong's presentation of souvenirs to mainland officers, and also the number of such occasions and the amount involved, on the 3rd of April this year, the ICAC replied in writing to a question from the FC, and we did provide the value of the souvenirs given by him at the Special Finance Committee. At the Special FC meeting on April the 9th, members are requested that we provide details regarding such souvenirs which were presented. At that time, given the deadline for us to reply, we collated the information in our record, and on April the 22nd, we provided a supplementary paper to LEGCO. We said that within those 5 years, the souvenirs presented by Mr. Tong to mainland officials amounted to $218,000 odd. After we've given that figure, it has been reported that this figure is not accurate. Therefore, we further check all the invoices and records, and we spend a lot of manpower and time in doing that. After reviewing the information, we now know, well, we discovered that there have been some omissions, and I'll inform members now what have been omitted. First of all, there were $56,800 worth of food and souvenir. Our colleagues noted that when the Commissioner went on overseas studio visits, he did bring along cookies to present to the counterparty, but we didn't have the information on hand at the time. And after talking to the Assistant Commissioner, we agreed that such food items were presented to the other party to be shared by the staff of the counterparty, and therefore it was we thought it was not considered necessary to include them into the value of souvenirs to be presented. At the time, we did not have information regarding the quantity of such cookies and details of the accounts. The ICAC admits that in dealing with this matter, we had not considered this thoroughly enough, but we had no intention at all to hide anything, and nobody deliberately tried to take this item of souvenir out of the record. And we also immediately extended our apology to electrical members and the public. Secondly, on 2011, when Mr. Tong went on a delegation of Bali to attend the second convention of the International Convention Against Corruption, he did present, he had presented souvenirs to officials valued $3,650, including 50 fountain pens worth $2,850, and ICAC pins, 14 in total, amounting to $800. And the total expenditure for this item is $3,650. The third item was worth about $3,700, including keychain, ICAC keychains, cufflinks, etc., valued at $20 to $30 each. At the time, Mr. Tong, during his different duty visits overseas, presented these souvenirs to the members of the convention. So these are the three items that we have omitted. If we include these three items, the total amount of the value of souvenirs presented to officials in different countries was not $218,750, but rather $282,870. Other than that, Mr. Tong also had presented $7,500 worth of gifts to academics who were related to the ICAC and members of public organizations, as well as NGOs. And these include his student visit to Australia and the UK when he attended anti-grafting conventions. And on those occasions, he presented such souvenirs to the delegates. Different departments of the ICAC also also gave souvenirs to delegates of seminars, totaling about $201,500, including the inauguration ceremony of the ICAC building in December 2011, and also in August, the opening ceremony and a seminar. On December 2011, there was the video competition on anti-corruption. For these functions, the number of people attended ranged from 100 to 200, and the souvenirs presented to these delegates included a folder, pen, name tags, and souvenirs such as the crystal model of the ICAC building and shields. Secondly, during the open day of the ICAC and during the annual survey conducted by the ICAC, souvenirs were presented to delegates and participants, and they value roughly about $207,000. And these souvenirs include photo frames, ballpoints, erasers, environmental bags, and so on. There were a large number of these people. In February 2009 and in October 2000, there were respectively 4,500 and 3,200 people who attended those occasions. A third item of totaling about $25,000, and they were when we present souvenirs, we need to have a bronze plaque bearing the name of the organization and sometimes the ICAC logo, and also expenses on the packaging of these souvenirs. So if we add all these figures together, during Mr. Tong's term, expenditure on souvenirs amounted in total to $724,000. Chairman, I've now clarified this part. ICAC officers always comply with the law, and they realize that they have to be fair and impartial in discharging their duties to fight corruption. And therefore, ICAC officers attach a lot of importance to personal integrity. Regarding the media's query, coverage and media query about the ICAC, we feel, despite that, we will stand firm, and we will stand firm on our convictions and continue to work hard to win the support of the public. We will continue to improve our systems, and I believe that through monitoring by members and the committee, advisory committee, and also the system, the independent commission monitoring the ICAC, the ICAC will certainly be able to play a more effective role in fighting corruption and to build up a clean society in Hong Kong. And finally, I'd like to point out that since the PAC is now conducting an inquiry regarding the work of the CRD and also the report of the Audit Commission, regarding the audit report, I'm sure it was more appropriate for us to answer questions relating to the report to the PAC. And we've also announced that we've initiated a criminal investigation into Mr. Timothy Tong. I personally am chairing that investigation team. In order to ensure that the investigation will be conducted fairly and justly, I will not touch upon the details of the accusations, and I hope I will have your indulgence. Without jeopardizing the criminal investigation, I and my colleagues will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you, Mr. Pei, for a most detailed supplement. Let's see how many members have put up their hands. With Mr. Raymond Wong, Mr. Tien, Mr. Gary Chan, Mr. Chen Kam Lam, Ms. Cyd HO. So 5 minutes each. Mr. Raymond Wong, thank you. Just now, the Commissioner explained in detail how much, how many souvenirs Mr. Timothy Tong had given away. Today, we are most concerned about the guidelines regarding the specific details about the amount of gifts presented by Mr. Tong. You gave us a figure of $210, and that turned out to be not an accurate figure. Now you told us that the actual amount is $280,000. That is not the important point here. I don't think you need to waste so much time to elaborate on that. Just give us a paper. What we are concerned about, first of all, is this. To talk about what was done by your predecessor is not very meaningful. Let's take a look at the guideline. The new guideline issued on May the 6th contained 3 points. Staff suddenly, if they have to discharge their duties or anything that is conducive to fulfilling the mission of the ICAC, only then can they go on duty visit. And also where those IC officers attending those functions has to be cannot exceed the number of guests. And thirdly, you do not allow no charges for functions hosted by the Commission, and all officers should not exchange gifts or souvenirs with representatives of other organizations and so on. What exactly do you mean by conducive to the mission of the ICAC, and what do you mean by related to the public functions? It's difficult for you to have any objective standard. Take Mr. Tong, for example. I did ask a question at the ICAC, but the chairman, stopped me from asking questions, so I asked it for a second time. that is, during the last 5 years, how many other departments other than the judiciary and the public security organizations that he had been in contact with, including the presentation of gifts or drinking of Mao Tai, and he did not answer my question. What do you mean by related to the official functions? You're talking about Section 12E of the commission's standing regulations. I think the different organizations in the mainland, like the discipline departments, do they require you to provide information? And secondly, regarding the effectiveness of these measures, they will depend on whether or not they are implemented efficiently. The ICAC is report directly to the CE, but the CE doesn't seem to have any supervisory role vis-a-vis the ICAC. On the one hand, you say that the ICAC is independent, but then it can also become an independent kingdom. So that measure, I think, on the premise that will not compromise the independence of the ICAC, only then will they constrain the commissioner. Because earlier we had the example of Timothy Tong. You told us that everybody felt rather uncomfortable. I think some people were very angry as well, because the very good reputation of the ICAC has been tainted, just like that. In para 6 of your paper, you say that in order to have proper checks and balance, all the public entertainments by the commissioner must be endorsed by the head of the Department of Operations, and whereas assistant directors and administration will check compliance of those attended by both commission and the heads of operations. To ask a subordinate to check his superior, I think that simply doesn't work. Well, I have 5 minutes.
Well, I find it very, very difficult indeed. And I think these checks and balances are not really good enough. Under the civil service regulation, it is very, very liberal, and you're taking reference from that. I think the ICAC should have higher expectation of themselves than other civil servants, because otherwise we will find ourselves in the similar situation that we find ourselves in today, Commissioner. You don't have to answer this question. All I'm saying is that there is still room for improvement with regard to these guidelines, and these new guidelines arose from the Timothy Tong saga, and you should be more vigilant. And I hope that the Commissioner would go away and try to improve these set of guidelines. Mr. Michael Tin, Commissioner, I will give you ample time to address my question. The new guidelines issued on May the 6th, I am concerned that whenever something happens, we are likely to overcorrect the situation, and we are taking ourselves to another extreme. In the new guidelines, what concerns me in particular is the approval of the entertainment expenses by a junior officer. Now, this is really unheard of. If the junior staff is to be appraised by the senior staff, and if this junior staff doesn't approve of certain application, then how can the appraisal system work? Now, there may be promotion involved, and it is only with good reason that application is made. And if the officer has to sit in judgment of his junior's performance, then I'm no psychologist myself. I find it very difficult for this to be workable. I mean, this will make the situation so politicized. So why don't you have a sunshine policy? Now, can this can it be like this? Now, if the rule has been flouted, then all the details should be made open to the public. And I think it would be for the Commissioner to lay bare all the reasons. Now, Mr. Timothy Tong gave himself all the approval if he disclosed all the details about his visits and so on. Then it would be a different story. You may say that if this is a sunshine policy, then there will be no confidentiality. The Director of Audit report highlighted all the inadequacies, all the unreasonable situation. I think you should have a certain degree of transparency. And let me put this to you. Will you consider a sunshine policy with regard to approval instead of this situation of the junior giving approval to the superior's visit? The other thing is about the morale of the ICAC. Now, the wastage rate, the turnover rate is getting ever higher in the ICAC. I'm not sure whether there is any whistleblower inside the ICAC. Mr. Commissioner, you are new to the post. How can you boost the morale of the ICAC, which is at a nadir at the present moment? Two questions. Let me say this. When members put questions, please keep the order. Commissioner. Thanks very much, Mr. Tin, for the question. In fact, Mr. Wong put the question. I didn't have the chance to answer him. Let me say this. Now, regarding the guidelines, we have identified the problems, and we are tackling them effectively. You mentioned the junior staff giving the approval to the superior staff. I agree that it may be undesirable, but we are happy to listen to views. Now, this is not the situation with regard to the ICAC or the government departments. Well, what about the sunshine policy? What? Now, I was going to say that this is not unique for the ICAC, for the entire government, as far as I understand. For department head level, there is a situation where the director, the department head, cannot give himself the approval regarding overspending, for instance. So this is not something for unique to the ICAC. So you don't subscribe to this idea of sunshine policy. Well, I wouldn't say that, but this is not unique to the ICAC. We are open to options. If there is room for improvement, we're only too delighted to listen to views. Mr. Chen Hek-Ken. Chairman, I welcome additional guidelines in the ICAC following what happened regarding Timothy Tong. Now, this junior staff giving approval to a senior staff is counterintuitive. Now, you are putting the DOPS and so on the spot. It would be hard for him not to give the approval. I mean, there would be loopholes. I am concerned that you may have the new guidelines. The problem will still persist. So, Mr. Commissioner, why don't you go away and consider how this situation of a junior staff approving something for the senior staff can be avoided. In the guidelines, there is no stipulation regarding the Commissioner inviting guests to a meal. The former Commissioner invited other people to other people not related to work to a particular meal. Now, you are spending taxpayers' money. I mean, if you're inviting friends and relatives to a dinner reception, then you're wasting taxpayers' money. In the guidelines, have you addressed this particular point? Mr. Commissioner, will you make any stipulation regarding the kind of officers joining the meal reception having to do with that sphere of work, Commissioner. Right, on the question of junior staff giving approval to senior staff, now in this particular incident, some made the comments that the senior management staff may have contributed views. Now, I would encourage my colleagues to remind me if I have any blind spots, if I haven't been vigilant about certain things. I would welcome reminders. If a department head has received my application for an entertainment, inviting certain guests, incurring such and such amount of money, I welcome any ideas. Now, if there is a suggestion that it should not be so expensive, we should include certain people, then I would welcome these suggestions. Now, we do have a sense of mission in the ICAC. We are upholding integrity in the ICAC. So I personally would welcome my colleagues to do so. I would be disappointed if he or she doesn't do so. Now, this system is not an ideal solution. I welcome views, and there will be committees and that would advance their views about the way forward. As regards the guest list, under the CSR, it is clearly stipulated. I understand that the legal advisor has put together a paper in this regard. Now, obviously, in the guidelines, we're not so rigid about the arrangement, but most important thing is that if I am the host, I am going to be inviting certain people. I have to justify myself why these people are invited. So when I do something, I have to justify myself. Now, all these rules and regulations are applicable service-wide in the whole government. So we have to consider the fact that different departments have different functions, and the situation may therefore differ. In the ICAC, I can give members the assurance that we will abide by these rules and regulations stringently. Mr. Chen Kam-lam. Chairman, thank you. Commissioner Pei mentioned the media reports being untruthful. I feel that the ICAC should point out all these untrue reports that the Commissioner gave us in detail, all the expenses incurred previously. I think these are important data. I think we have to right the wrong in the media, and all these information should be disclosed as soon as possible. Because otherwise, the core values that we talk about, this gilded image of the ICAC might be dragged through the gutter. Now, the ICAC has enjoyed reputation in the international community. It has been held in pretty high esteem in Asian countries, and the mainland are very keen to take a leaf out of the book of the ICAC, and they have been, or indeed the ICAC has been invited, or they have been visiting the ICAC on a regular basis. I think it would be a good idea for us to have more exchanges. For us to keep probity doesn't mean that it's good enough for us to achieve probity. We do need to have exchanges and cooperation to guard against corruption on the international level. So the exchanges internationally will increase. Obviously, the ICAC has to keep a close eye on the expenditure. A moment ago, there were members who referred to the expenditure of the ICAC, and there is a new arrangement for the junior staff to give approval to the senior staff, and they find this to be suspect. And I don't think that they should go that far with regard to the internal expenditure of the ICAC. The internal checks and balances would be very important. Well, it would not be a good idea for the Commissioner to have the final say on every single item of expenditure. If we have a division that is looking at the expenditure, then it would be a good idea from different angles.
So there should be guidelines for checks and balance, so there wouldn't be a question of a subordinate officer approving expenses to be incurred by his superior. If the superior wants to incur certain expenses and this is not approved by his subordinate, does it mean that he will have to dismiss that subordinate officer? We have to go by the rules. There would need to be a system that works and is commonly accepted. So even though you may give the impression of a junior officer approving expenditure to be incurred by a senior officer, I think you need to build up a good internal control system. I would like the Commissioner to give me some information that is other than the new guidelines that you published on the 6th of May. And the figures incurred previously, how do they differ from the expenses incurred since the date you announced the new guidelines, so that the public would know that your new guidelines are now more stringent than before? Or is it the case that the expenses incurred is more or less the same as before? Chairman, I'd like to ask Mr. Chen whether he's referring to expenses on official entertainment. Of course, the media, if they provide accurate reports, we have a duty to clarify. But as I said, we've had to look up all the invoices and check all the records, and that took up a lot of our colleagues' time who had to work overtime before we now have the figures. Of course, once we have the figures, we will clarify any misunderstanding as soon as possible. We issued the new guidelines on the 6th of May, and it's been not even 1 month since. I believe it's difficult to have any actual figures that we can make comparison. But I can tell you that since I took up my office, the expenses in this area should be substantially lower than those incurred by my predecessor during the same period. There have been a marked reduction. Mr. To, all of us really cherish the good reputation of the ICAC. We also therefore hope that the current Commissioner will adopt an open mind and help us together review the operation of the ICAC so that we can restore our confidence. I think if someone is in a position of power and he has a lot of work to attend to, sometimes he may omit certain things, and he should be prepared to accept reminders from people around him. Well, this only works for a person with integrity. For someone who doesn't have any integrity, and you rely on him accepting advice or reminder from people around him, wouldn't work. And we've seen some examples in the past. The internal guidelines of the ICAC, the CSR has existed for a long time. There are rules regarding, improper expenses, or there are rules governing the presentation of souvenirs and gifts, and there are even rules regarding the giving of gifts for weddings and personal functions. For anyone, who is starting his career in the ICAC, whatever the rank, shouldn't they all study the guideline well so that they understand the culture of the ICAC, which puts integrity on the top priority. So with these guidelines, we would like to ask whether or not the junior officers dare to speak out, or would they not have the courage to speak out? In the past, we've seen examples of someone giving away expensive gifts, and it's not just one person who can do that. You have to ask people to find the gifts, and it's not just the former commissioner alone who can do this alone. Other people would be in the know, including his subordinates. Why is it then that in the past, the system of under the system of the ICAC, nobody spoke out? Was it because nobody dared to speak out, or that somebody had actually spoken out but nobody listened, and after they've done so several times, people give up and don't speak up anymore? Shouldn't you study whether you need to set up a system to protect the people who are willing to make reports? That is for junior officers when they detect any improper behavior, and if they attempt, they want to speak out, and there will be a channel for them to make a report so that the matter can be dealt with properly. We always say that the ICAC really maintain confidentiality, but sometimes if you focus too much on confidentiality, there is a lack of transparency, and corruption may arise. So could the current commissioner tell us whether or not you will consider setting up a system to protect those whistleblowers? As I said, that my colleagues around me, I would encourage my colleagues to, to remind me from time to time, and I should also be open-minded to accept such reminders. And this system works for people with integrity, but if we rely only on integrity, this may not be good enough. So we need to safeguard that by way of a system, and that's why I issue a new guideline on the 6th of May, because I hope that under this system I would like to send out a clearer guidelines to our colleagues so that our officers do not have to interpret what the rule means. For the new recruits to the ICAC, we certainly will provide sufficient training to them. One may say that we would educate them, because whether they're responsible for enforcement or community relations or public education or anti-bribery works, or that is still a very important foundation. Why is it that such training had not worked? I wouldn't agree that it has not worked. According to my observation, ICAC officers really maintain a high level of integrity, and they work very hard to maintain the integrity of the ICAC. I don't think there's a problem of this nature within the ICAC, but it is true that there is no check and balance. Mr. Wong, Mr. James TO, and who else would like to speak? Mr. Leung Kwok-him. Thank you. Chairman, could we be given a copy of that guideline, the one that was published on the 6th of May? Mr. Pei. Well, it's an internal document, but I believe I can provide an extract to members. I don't quite agree. What is your justification for that? Of course, you may claim that this is an internal document, but if we want to monitor the ICAC and we can't even have access to the code, how can we play a role in monitoring the ICAC's work? I think if you talk about checks and balance, you will need to let the public know. You should need to provide the information to us, and then there will need to be monitoring, and then there will need to be regulation, and then penalty, right? But we don't have such that in our hands, and this is not too satisfactory. Honestly, if we were able to monitor the ICAC in those 5 areas, these things would have happened. Not to mention the lavish expenditure. You have so many things that are confidential, and there are occasions where people who are unrelated to the official function attended, and hard liquor were consumed. And after several rounds of such hard liquor, or some people will get drunk after 3 rounds, others may get drunk. I think just the ICAC officers getting drunk is bad enough a problem. I think if you drink 3 cups of Multi and you drive afterwards, you'll be arrested, right? And you'll be taken for a dope test. Right. So what sort of things will you discuss if you're half drunk? I think the first rule you should lay down is that no hard liquor should be allowed to be drunk at those functions, and this should be enforced stringently. I'm really unhappy that you're not willing to give us your internal guidelines. You can delete those things which you think to be confidential. Does the guideline contain any names? Could you delete those part of the guidelines which you think are confidential, and then give us a copy, so we would know. So I'm not going to accept your explanation. And secondly, for a junior officer to approve expenses incurred by the senior officer, I think if the senior officer continue to do what he does and not listen to the advice of the subordinate officer, this is nothing new. It has been in place within the civil service a long time. But to a very large extent, for organizations like the ICAC, you always tell us that we should believe in you. But there is also a simple logic here. The greater your power, the less constraint you are subject to, and once you make a mistake, the bigger the consequence. So I think once you made a mistake, you have to leave the commission, like the director of Marine. He refused to apologize. In other jurisdictions, in an incident like that, he will have to resign. For someone who is in high power, position of high power, he would need to also have a lot of integrity. I think so we're only talking about opportunity cost here, because we all believe in you, but there are big flaws in your system. So if you show us your guideline and we tell you that it doesn't work and so on, then we can jointly, bear the responsibility. So, Mr. Pei, why is it that you are not willing to let LegCo have access to that guideline? I don't quite. I'm really, unhappy with such an attitude on your part. Why is it that you are unwilling to let us have access to the guidelines that you have promulgated? Mr. James TO, Chairman, you show us your CSR and CSO. There are already many questions we want to ask, But regarding those guidelines, regarding limits on expenses on official entertainment, I don't see how they are confidential. I thought I've got it wrong. This is the paper dated the 11th of May. Then you issued the new guidelines on the 6th. You should have, given us such information. I publicly commended you for tightening the rules. But if you refuse to disclose such information, then I wouldn't know whether in your further guidelines you may tighten some of the rules here and you might have relaxed the rules elsewhere. For example, in Annex C, this is part of your Annex your standing orders. And in number 5, you say that for official entertainment could be combined with private entertainment, and then you can only charge expenses for the official function. But why is it that for official entertainment it can be combined with private entertainment? I don't quite understand. This is 30th of January 2012. Are you deliberately amending the rules for the sake of Mr. Tong so that he wouldn't be in breach? How is it that official entertainment could be combined with private entertainment? I'm quite perplexed here. So I hope you will seriously consider, giving us access to your new guidelines.
And Mr. Leung referred to the consumption of alcohol. I'm not referring just to spirits or hard liquor. What concerns me is that the operations department or the commissioner must be in possession of some confidential documents. I would be shocked if you don't. In Annex C, official entertainment might be combined with private entertainment. So it is not that kind of working meeting together with other departments which would be subject to a cap of $150. If you involve private individuals, they should not be privy to the confidential documents. With the consumption of alcohol, one will let their guard down, and you might otherwise be very, very alert about the confidential or classified information. But after a few glasses, you will be feeling less inhibited, and you may be going a little bit too far with your conversation. Now, the former commissioner talked about consuming hard liquor, and he's got a big stock of hard liquor, and he's consuming these spirits. And I get the feeling that you should think about it, not just you, but other disciplined forces, the police, customs and excise, and so on, and also the finance officials or the SFC officials and so on, should think about it. Now, it was exposed that the former commissioner of the ICAC was involved in drinking alcohol. Now, here you adopt this principle of common sense in the CSO. Now, normally it would be okay, but if the ICAC has developed a culture of consuming spirits, starting from a certain commissioner, and everybody is trying to consume hard liquor, and they're involved in these entertainment, maybe official entertainments. But the members of the public would be rightly concerned about this. Finally, Mr. Chairman, the food, beverages, tips, and so on that would be included in the $450. Now, there was a former commissioner who made the point that it would be cheaper to purchase alcohol from outside, and there would be no charge of corkage. Now, this commissioner said that he wasn't aware of that, despite the fact that he's been a civil servant for all his life. And I hope that you would make it clear. First of all, I would ask for a cite of the guidelines to start with. Mr. Alan Leong. Chairman, I didn't see the guidelines issued on May the 6th, so I've got no idea how these new guidelines are different from the former version under the former commissioner. Is it the case that you have everything new under the new guidelines? I'd like to find out a little bit more. Perhaps Commissioner Pei would give us more information. If I may ask two questions, Chairman. We have listened to the former commissioner. He said that during duty visits outside of Hong Kong, the relevant hosting organization may arrange for certain visits and activities, and he said it would be difficult for him to reject the hospitality. Now, with these new guidelines, the ones that we haven't been given sight of, is there an arrangement in this regard? Second, we heard from the former commissioner and the incumbent commissioner about the splitting of bills for a single meal. The incumbent commissioner said, the former commissioner said that there is a bit of a gray area. In these new guidelines, will there be an arrangement to address the gray area? Now, if my recollection is correct, if you log on the ICAC website, and if you look at the best practices regarding anti-corruption, there is a paragraph which is only in English and not Chinese about procurement. I think it is about purchasing something, the policy about purchasing things. Now, when you procure, you cannot split a consignment into two bills. Now, this is only in English. It says that it is not the best corruption prevention practice. That's what it said. I'd like to hear from the commissioner regarding the gray area. Is it really that gray? In your website, you are suggesting, you are proposing that all these bills should not be split up. But what about splitting the bill for a meal, Commissioner? Well, I didn't get round to Mr. Leung Kwok-him and Mr. James TO's question regarding the guidelines. If there are no problems, then I would produce a summary of the guidelines. Members can rest assured that all the details of the guidelines are included in the paper. There is nothing else. As regards the standing orders, I've already referred to the fact that we are replicating basically from the Civil Service Regulation. This is not something that we invented. So basically this is applicable to government departments as well. In relation to alcohol consumption, members can rest assured that since I've taken office, I've never used spirits to entertain any guests. Well, I hope that the Commission will answer my question within this time slot, not in answer to previous questions, otherwise my time would be wasted. Right, in the new guidelines, the visits are also governed. When you conduct visits, you should conduct visits to do with the work that you're dealing with. Now, if the hosting country is organizing sightseeing activities, you're not supposed to come back to Hong Kong late. Now, after the official business, that despite all these sightseeing, you have to come back to Hong Kong. You cannot come back late because of the sightseeing activities. As to bill splitting, in the new guidelines, it is made very clear that this is prohibited for a meal. All the activities before, during, and after the meal should be included as one bill. The tips, the drinks, the dessert, or even something that you buy for that particular occasion should be included as one bill. Right? Any more members for the first round? I've got 5 minutes for myself, and then Mr. Michael Tin and Mr. James TO for the second round. I agree with the members that we cherish the ICAC's reputation, and this is a very, very important asset for Hong Kong that we have to guard jealously for ourselves. And this much I agree. The problems that we encounter make us very concerned about the excesses committed by the ICAC. Now, the ICAC has always had a sense of mission, and the ICAC should be held up as a shining example. So we do pin very high expectation on the ICAC. The Commissioner referred to an issue a moment ago, and that is the approval of overspending. You do have some measures in this regard. However, if we do have a mechanism in which we have someone held responsible, now within the government it would be the head of department, in the ICAC it would be the Commissioner who has the obligation to be accountable. Or alternatively, if you have a committee or a panel that gives the approval, gives the final approval, then it would be a good idea. I hope that the ICAC under Commissioner Pei would specifically formulate something that would be much better than what is being done at the present moment. The other thing is the grey area, the bill splitting practice. Commissioner, you said that you will be very strict going forward. In the past, did we have a bit of a grey area, or did we not have any grey area in the guidelines? Commissioner. Chairman, thank you. First of all, about the culture, I touched on this a moment ago. I think members can rest assured that the ICAC, up and down the ICAC, everyone is upholding integrity. My observation is that there are no problems whatsoever with regard to integrity. As regards approval, I'm open to options. As I said a moment ago, the review committee, the independent review committee certainly will make some recommendations there. You mentioned the grey area. I've gone through some of the documents. Indeed, there are some ambiguities in the documents which will be open to interpretation. The Director of Audit looked at the two dinners that went beyond the spending limit. There were no in compliance with the rules, but there was a bit of grey area, and it didn't tie in with the spirit of the regulation. So on the 6th of May, we have issued an updated set of guidelines. We have removed all these doubts which are open to interpretation, all the grey areas that can be open to interpretation. We'd like to avoid this situation ever again. For a single meal, everything that happens before, during, and after the meal, including the stuff that you buy and consume during the meal, everything has to be included in a single bill. Now it is very clear. There is no more ambiguity in this regard. Thank you. All right. I welcome this arrangement. The other thing is when entertaining guests, how can we make sure that the guests will be related to business? Is there any specific stipulation in the guidelines? Because this is very much a controversial area. Chairman, well, the guests invited should be related to official business, because in different entertainments, it would be difficult for us to be absolutely rigid. But the spirit is that everybody has to be related to official business. Some may be involved in liaison work, like the community work. If there are official entertainments to do with district councils, then this would be regarded as liaison work. Our guidelines would be far clearer than before.
Michael Dean, 4 minutes. Chairman, many expatriate friends told me that they are most impressed with Hong Kong as a metropolitan city is the existence of the ICAC. I always therefore believe that ICAC is one of the key factors for Hong Kong's success. Earlier, I asked the Commissioner about the morale of the ICAC. Recently, you have people leaving the ICAC, people who formerly retired also were asked to go back to work, and you've conducted so much. I'm really worried whether the ICAC will continue to be as efficient as before. And this time you have this incident. I'm sure the Commissioner is also very concerned. Now, regarding the new guidelines, have you consulted with your colleagues whether they are really very happy, saying that these guidelines are so explicit, everything's now clear, we will no longer have any adverse incidents, or would they think that, I mean, you don't trust it at all? Why are you going into such fine details? So, how is the morale of your staff internally? And secondly, what measures do you intend to adopt to improve morale? Thank you, Mr. Dean. The ICAC indeed has a very high reputation internationally, and because of this, many jurisdictions have come to Hong Kong to learn from examples. Regarding staff attrition, I have been following up on this, and I found out that our wastage rate started in I think the situation started to improve in 2011, 2012. We don't have the figures for 2013, but according to the latest information, the situation has drastically improved compared with 07, 08. Our wastage rate now is about 5.3 to 5.6%. Compared with other government departments, I think we are a little bit on the high side, but it's not that much higher. Compared with the two-digit wastage rate earlier, we have seen a major improvement. Regarding staff morale, indeed this is my concern. And during the early stage, when this incident, after this incident happened, I had written a letter to all our staff to give them my encouragement. I've also asked the heads of all departments and senior colleagues to, whether it's through the departmental meetings or when they meet with the colleagues, to send out this message to them, to tell them that so long as we, maintain our highest level of integrity, we can continue with our work, and we shouldn't be, affected by these adverse incidents. Regarding the new guidelines, when I proposed new guidelines, I've consulted with a few heads of departments. I have 3 heads of departments, and they unanimously agreed with my proposal. So basically, the guidelines were able to be promulgated within a very short time. They all agree. So it helped improve morale, yes. Mr. Cheung Hwa Fong. Thank you. The former Commissioner, Mr. Timothy Tong, has been accused of, using public funds to entertain and to give souvenirs. I'm in favor of conducting a thorough investigation to find out the facts. Just now, Mr. Pei said that the expenses, there are new regulations regarding expenses on official entertainment, and I think this is a good improvement, especially for a subordinate officer to approve the expenses to be incurred by the sub-commissioner. It's a good suggestion, and the new Mr. Pei is willing to accept advice from his colleagues. But this is only the style of the Commissioner himself. How can we ensure that within the system itself we can prevent people using public funds for personal entertainment, or will the staff who give appropriate advice be punished or sanctioned? Could the Commissioner go back and think about how he could do better? And also, can you put this on record, put these new guidelines on record for the reference of the civil servants? Mr. Jiang, you're right in saying that. You're most correct, Mr. Jiang. As heads of department, we need to exercise much better self-discipline. And I believe the administration would expect all heads of departments to do this. You said that if we rely on the individual without a system in place, there would still be a risk. We believe, therefore, that the system is important. In our guidelines dated the 6th of May, we proposed a new arrangement. Of course, we've already heard some comments about the new arrangement. Members felt that this may not be the perfect arrangement. So I've said already that we're willing to listen in order that we can come up with an even better solution to replace the arrangement for junior officers approving expenses to be incurred by his senior officers. So if there should be any anomalies, we'd like to make improvements. Mr. Albert HO, thank you. In response to Mr. James TO's question, you say in your paper that for example, when you have liaison with electoral members, political parties, or other organizations, or that's part of your duties. And you say also that all such liaison has to be in the context of official business. So only then will the expenses incurred be charged to public funds. So what exactly do you mean by official business? I mean, well, if you conduct an investigation, of course, there's no reason why you need to liaise with people, for example. So will you only limit this to your duties relating to the promotion of the mission and vision of the ICAC, or exchanging views and so on? Yes, basically they would cover these. Let me give an example. Let's say if we invite electoral members to our office for an exchange, and we can, so that we can explain to you about the work of the ICAC to help you better understand how we work. That would be one form of exchange. Well, that would fall under the definition of official business. But other than that, let's say if you have a head of a government department making an appointment to meet with you in order to get acquainted, well, that may not necessarily be an exchange over the topic of anti-corruption. If it's purely, liaison between departments, you're talking about in between government departments. I'm sure this will not happen within the government, but what about outside organizations? In such a scenario, would you treat that as part of your official duties? Chairman, I frequently receive, from officials from other jurisdictions, requests to come to Hong Kong to have exchanges with us regarding how we can fight corruption or to learn from examples. And this happens from time very often. Normally, if we think that the nature of the business is related to our official business, and if the purpose of the request is related to our official business, we will try our best to accept. That is, I will send one of our colleagues to meet with them and take them on a tour to our exhibition gallery and to explain to them what we've done since 1974 in fighting corruption. Or they may be interested in how we enforce the ordinance and how do we conduct public education and promotion. These happen all the time, but they are just confined to meetings or giving them a lecture and so on. And very rarely would we need to use public funds to treat them to meals. I'd like to next ask about your liaison with the China liaison office. The Commissioner has met with them twice. On both occasions, no public funds were used because those meetings were not related to the official business of the ICAC, because the other party was the host. Whereas for the previous Commissioner, Mr. Tong, according to your record, was his liaison with the Chinese liaison office related to the promoting work of ICAC. Within the China liaison office, they have a so-called monitoring office. They represent the highest court in China, and they've come to Hong Kong for liaison work. Together with the highest court in the mainland, since 1988, we have collaborated on case investigations involving cases which cross-border cases, or the witnesses might have left Hong Kong and gone to the mainland, and we would need to find out whether or not we need assistance from mainland officers to help us with the investigation. So we built up that working relationship since 1988. The compliance department would be responsible for education and publicity. So we do have a working relationship with the China liaison office. Well, whatever, I cannot comment on what happened that is not within my term. During my term, I attended one meal upon the invitation of the China liaison office, because at the time I've just taken up my office, and it was out of courtesy that they invited us to a meal, but we didn't discuss anything over the meal. The other occasion was a seminar, and at that seminar we invited the head of that compliance office as a guest to take part in our seminar, Mr. James TO. For the head of operation to approve expenses to be incurred by the commissioner, or for the AD to approve expenses to be incurred by his superior, I don't think that is too satisfactory. But then we don't have much choice. Either you ask the CE to make that approval, but if you ask the CE for approval, that would appear to be very cumbersome for him. So I was thinking that perhaps you should not ask your junior officer to approve such expenditures, but for the commissioner to do that instead. But then you should report periodically to the OCR, on the expenses that you have personally approved for yourself. And if they have any views, then they can bring it up on that occasion. So at least, you have these outsiders, and they are familiar with the work. So at least the public. I think if you approve a lot of the expenses which you incur yourself, then that committee will have a duty to ask why. So I think this is one possible solution. And next, you say your standing orders basically follows the CSR or the. So I'd like to ask, why is it that for official entertainment you have? How is it that official entertainment could be combined with private entertainment? I mean, why do we have such a guideline in the first place, and how does it work? And in Annex C, it says that if you incur public expenditures for entertainment, TA, you say in 2A you say expenses charge has to be directly related to the official duties and in the public interest. So have you ever explained to your staff what it really means? If you entertain your guests with hard liquor, let's assume that it's included part of the $450, will that be in breach of 2B when everybody is drinking hard liquor? Because it's not in the public interest. So what exactly is that? You must have thought of something. So perhaps you could explain that to us. I think you've been working in the Immigration Department for such a long time, and these two rules have been applied for a long time. Or is it the case that there were different sets of rules before March 2012?
Commissioner, thanks very much, Mr. To, for the question. You mentioned calling upon the Operations Review Committee as the body to give assistance. Then I would consider your view. Now, you also asked a question about the standing orders referring to official entertainment combined with private entertainment. I don't have any personal experience in this regard myself. Now, as far as I understand, this has been around for some considerable time. First of all, I haven't encountered a situation where this occurs, so I'm afraid I cannot answer this question. What about 2B in the public interest? Again, I don't have any personal experience in this regard. I've never had a situation where in the public interest I had to incur taxpayers' money for the entertainment. I would tread very carefully in this area. It's only when it is strictly related to official business that I would incur public money. I don't have any personal experience regarding your question. All right. Any further questions? If not, then on behalf of the panel, my thanks to Commissioner Simon Pei for being with us and making available all the detailed information on this very subject dear to our heart, in particular in relation to the presentation of gifts by the former commissioner. Commissioner, would you consider further the new guidelines? Would you consider making available the guidelines to us? Perhaps you might wish to make available a copy to the Secretariat. Whoever is interested can get access to the copy from the Secretariat, and we can read the guidelines within the Secretariat. But I get a feeling that we should allow members to have a better understanding of the situation. Mr. To, I beg to differ, Chairman. If this is not a classified document, that you have a lot of classified document, definitely this is not classified document within the ICAC. And I hope that if this can be made available to the public, it would be good, because confidence is everything at the present moment. It would be good if this is made public, because people might suspect that there is something untoward behind it. All right, Commissioner, you heard that. I'm sure that these kind of guidelines should not be considered as confidential. I would consider that. I would follow up. Okay. All right, then, unless you have anything else, that's it for this item. Regarding the ICAC is drawn to a close very quickly. On to item 5, replacement of 7 helicopters and the associated mission equipment of the government flying service. Shall we invite the officials to join us? I'd like to remind members that under 28(3)(a), members should not have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest and move an emotion at the same time. And they're not supposed to speak on those subjects if the interest exists, unless they disclose the nature of the interests. So on this particular subject, if members do have any direct or indirect pecuniary interests involved, please make the declaration accordingly. Just a reminder, any declaration? No? All right, then, I'd like to welcome the following officials: Mr. John Lee, Under Secretary for Security; Mr. Vic Yao, Principal Assistant Secretary Security; Mr. Michael Chen, Controller, Government Flying Service; and last but not least, Mr. Jason Yun, Senior Aircraft Engineer Support, GFS. Under Secretary, I let you have some time to brief us on the paper, which I'm sure members have read. Chairman, thank you. We have 3 Super Puma and 4 Dolphin helicopters in the GFS. They came into service in 2001 and 2002. Given the nature, they have a lifespan of 13 to 15 years, and they will come to the end of the service lifespan after 2017. Last year, the GFS conducted a comprehensive review on the fleet. In the coming 4 years, that they should be able to meet the demand. In come 2017, the SAR, or Search and Rescue Operation, and reliability might decrease. At the present moment, the major problems facing the fleet are the aging parts, and the products or the models have been taken out of the production line, and there is a rusting in the body of the aircraft and of the helicopters, and there will be maintenance problems. We proposed that we would adopt one single model instead of to replace the 3 Super Puma and 4 Dolphin helicopters. There would be good advantages with regard to the standardization. First, we can, at the present moment, the helicopters cannot conduct any nighttime search and rescue operation. With one single type, we will have greater flexibility in deployment. We will have a better response. Now, the new helicopters can be equipped with new technology, and they will have a better capability in emergency situation. And the training time can be reduced with one single type of helicopters. The new helicopters will have new mission equipment, which will be more sophisticated. With the replacement, the SAR capability, the capacity, avionics system the anti-corrosion frame structures and guarantee of spare parts supply, everything would be much better than currently. The government flying service provides a search and rescue mission, hill fire fighting, and emergency dispatch. Now, with the new helicopters, we can enhance safety and effectiveness. I hope that members will support this proposal. With members' support, we'll go to the Finance Committee to seek $2.187 billion, so that in 1314 to 1718 we can complete this whole replacement exercise. Mr. James To and Mr. Yu Si-weng, any other members? Mr. To, 5 minutes, please. Chairman, Para 2 mentions that the helicopters are involved in search and rescue operation, internal security, the fighting of hill fire, etc. We heard from reports that Mr. Timothy Tong, as Deputy Secretary for Security, did ask for the fixed-wing aircraft to be used for parachuting and so on. Now, my question is then that other than the search and rescue operation and security, are there times that the helicopters or aircraft would be used for some other purposes? Can you be more specific, please? Undersecretary, thank you. Chairman, there is one principle that the GFS abides by, and that is to support the work of other departments. But there are a number of considerations. This is a condition that the search and rescue operation and others will not be affected. Second, the support service must be related to official business, and also it has to be on condition that there would be no other alternative mode of transport. And all departments have to formulate policies to fit in these considerations. And one has to be a directorate staff to make application with the GFS. Well, I understand that. I'm asking how many hours are spent on these other purposes. I've heard that the JP visits, if they're going to the outlying islands, and they may be using GFS servers. But other than these core duties, in terms of support services rendered to other departments, what sort of services did you offer to other departments other than using it as a mode of transport? Would there be sightseeing? Now, we have heard so much exposés about Mr. Timothy Tong. Did Mr. Tong, for instance, accompany mainland officials on a sightseeing trip by using the GFS service? He may be explaining or lecturing on the anti-corruption work while in flight. So can you tell us the flight hours that associated with work other than the core duties, and how many hours were there? Undersecretary. Well, Chairman, the GFS doesn't have this kind of separate breakdown. Mr. To referred to the scenario. If any department seeks assistance, it has to be work-related. I wonder why you didn't have the breakdown there. The support service for departments and the core duties are two separate things. Search and rescue is something that you do on a regular basis, but some other departments may be asking for transport service of the GFS. I wonder why you don't have the breakdown there. Undersecretary. Well, as far as I understand, different departments have their own statistics. The flight hours, the number of participants, we don't have any separate breakdown there. Well, let Mr. Lee just finished. Well, he said it doesn't have any statistics. Why don't you have the statistics? Well, we don't have to break down specifically, Mr. To. Now, what department used your service the most, and in a particular year, how much of the service did they use? Can I have the information? Thank you, Chairman. Well, under the statistics, we have an item, government task, and that is the service rendered to government departments. And that is the flying service to do with official business. Now, under this particular item, we may be conveying some technical staff to remote areas for maintenance. We may be called upon to assist in surveillance, to do with law enforcement. It may have to do with JP visits and so on. As to how many flight hours are involved in each and every category, the statistical data don't give us the information. We do have the information about how many hours are involved for which department. As to how many flight hours are involved in different types of work referred to by Mr. To, we don't have the separate breakdown there.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. I agree that we should replace the helicopter fleets for the old fleet that given that it operates in a salt-laden atmosphere, it's subject to serious problems with corrosion. You told us that previously it takes 2 or 3 weeks for you to find spare parts. Now you have to wait for 1, 2, or even up to 7 months. So between now and 2017, will there be a scenario where you'll be able to procure spare parts and thus affecting the operation of your fleet? You've not explained that in your paper. And secondly, over the last few years, since you need to do more repair works, costs have gone up, so has the manpower resources required. And you say that you're now proposing to standardize the model. So what model will you use, and for this particular model of helicopter, will it be more environmentally friendly or compared with the existing model? And also, will the mileage that the new models will the new models be able to have a longer mileage? According to the report, you have the establishment of 200 odd staff under the GFS. After you've standardized the two models into a single model, would you be able to reduce the establishment of the government flying service? Thank you. Regarding spare parts, while we have a shortage, but we've already carried out a series of measures to cope with that, including the procurement of a definite number of spare parts from the supply beforehand, so that we would be able to cope with the need for the next 4 years. We also can procure second-hand spare parts for, say, the Super Puma helicopters. We can remove some of the old spare parts from those helicopters for our use. Regarding the maintenance staff and cost, we believe that if we're going to use the same model, it should help in terms of maintenance and repair, because we don't need to keep 2 separate sets of spare parts. So in theory, the number of spare parts we stock will be reduced by half. As far as manpower is concerned, I think we'll maintain the same establishment. We're replacing 7 helicopters, so there is no difference as far as manpower requirement is concerned. But before the new helicopters arrive to replace the existing fleet, we need to carry out more preventive maintenance. So for these defensive maintenance, I mean, they are becoming more frequent, but the maintenance expenses are not that much different, because the biggest item expenditure is on fuel. Regarding which model we will use, we will need to, invite tenders. According to the information, there are 8 different models of medium-range helicopters. To put it simply, and as an analogy, for the search and rescue undertaken by the Super Puma is 500 knots. For the Dolphin, it's 100. The medium range is from 1,400 to 400 because of the engine capacity and the size of the fuel tank. Regarding the expenses to be incurred and the model that we will procure, we will have to wait until we've gone through the tendering process. For these 8 different models, 5 are already in service. There are some which are new models. Certainly they all will satisfy the environmental requirements laid down by the CAD. I think their requirements are more stringent than our jurisdictions, and all these are spelled out clearly in the tender documents. Regarding whether we can cut down on the number of flight crew, well, we need to maintain a fleet of 7 helicopters, so I believe we have no plans to increase or cut the number of staff. Chairman, I think it's a good thing that we should replace these helicopters in a timely manner. The paper also proposes that we should use a single model, and I have some worry here. The GFS provides service through different types of helicopters. It has worked well in the past. It has helped spread the risk, so that of the 2 models, if for technical or design reasons, if one of the model would need to be, suspended from flying, then the other model can still be put to use. I believe that most airline companies in the world would buy models from different manufacturers, and this is one of the reasons. So I have 3 questions. First of all, for the GFS, after they've decided to use the single model, if this single model suffers from structural problem and has to be suspended from flight, would it mean that the GFS will have no helicopters to use? Do you have a fallback plan? Secondly, you say you want to replace them with a medium-range helicopter. We understand that the Super Puma is a large helicopter, the Dolphin is a smaller helicopter. If you're going to use a medium-sized helicopters, will it affect the ability of the GFS to undertake, search and rescue operations on highways, which really can be better done by medium-sized helicopters? Why is it that in your paper you are able to calculate so accurately that you'll be able to increase the number of persons to be carried by the new helicopter of 19%? Does it mean that you've already made a decision regarding which model you will procure? And if so, could you explain to us which particular model this is? Under Secretary. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fan. First of all, indeed we have a fallback plan. First of all, the possibility of a particular model which needs to be put off the air, the possibility is very small. After we have replaced the existing, after we've taken delivery of the new models, we still will retain the Dolphin helicopters as reserve. So for transporting patients or rescue operations at sea, we can still use the Dolphin operators. The rescue operations is not just the work of the GFS. I think for any rescue operations, we do not just rely on the GFS. The GFS is only play one important role in the entire rescue operation. The GFS will need to work together with other vessel fleets. So the fallback plan will already take care of that. I'd like to also say that the 2 fixed-wing helicopters will also participate in these rescue operations. Regarding the advantage and disadvantages of the medium-sized helicopters, and why do we only opt for a single model? First of all, the advantage is obvious. For example, the flight distance, the airborne time is increased by 27%. To answer Mr. Fan's question, as to whether or not we already have a model in mind, the answer is no. I told you that there are 8 models in the market. We need to wait until the tenders have been completed before we can make a decision. But according to what we found out from the market, medium-sized helicopters has a capacity of carrying 15 persons. Times 7 is 105 persons. For the 2 models that we use now, the Super Puma and the Dolphin, the Super Puma can carry 20, the Dolphin can carry 7 passengers. So we're talking about 19-20%. Total carrying capacity. According to our paper, we found that in general, they can carry up to 17,000 kilograms. Right now is 13,000 odd kilograms. Right, do we have any other members other than Mr. To for the second round? If not, I'd like to first ask 2 questions. Mr. James To, talk about the standard for the service to be rendered by other government departments. I think the media has once reported that Mr. Tong had actually used the service of the fixed-wing airplane. Is that really in compliance with your standard at the moment? I believe Mr. To asked this question. I would also like to ask the same question. And secondly, if you were to replace your existing fleet of helicopters, and now that so would there be a need to drastically increase the backup service? Other than the pilots, you need the other ancillary staff, and you may need to give them training. So 2 questions. Thank you. Let me answer this easy question. Regarding manpower, we have no plans to increase the manpower. For the the requirement to fly the medium-sized helicopter is the same as the requirement to fly the 2 existing models. Actually, by acquiring the single model, it can enhance our cost effectiveness. Right now, we need to train our pilots to fly both models. After we standardize the fleet, our efficiency will increase by 50% because we only need to train our pilots to fly a single model. And if we operate 2 models, the pilots will need to have a break after they've flown one model. And after they've flown on one model, they will need a break of 1 hour before they can adjust to the other model. And every year, regarding the testing, I think right now for each model, they are subject to 5 examinations every year. If we are to conduct these examinations for a single model, then again we can save time because we don't have to do it for both models. So talking about training times, I think we can improve efficiency by 1/3. Instead of 18,000 hours, we only need to spend 1,200 hours. So therefore, there's no need for us to hire additional staff. regarding the criteria for using the service of the GFS, I reiterated already that it has to be related to government service, although generally we do not comment on individual cases. The Custom and Excise Department, when they use the service of GFS, they must satisfy the requirement that is related to their official duties and government service. The C&E department sometimes will need to rely on the GFS to help them, conduct operations against the smugglers, to find out what the route of the smugglers, and also to crack the smuggling operations. Of course, the person who makes the decision will decide on which sort of planes will need to be enlisted for help, and also the controller will also have to make his professional decision. Mr. Fan, for the second round, I can only give 3 minutes. Well, the Undersecretary told us that could he elaborate further about the additional airborne time that we will get if we choose the medium-sized helicopter? Secondly, I expressed my concern that the government has already made a decision with regard to which model it will procure. According to the information, the model produced in mainland China, if you procure that model, as the total carriage capacity is up 19%. Whether it's the MTRC or the other commercial vehicles running on our roads, very often there is a tendency to buy more and more vehicles from the mainland. Will it also be the case for helicopters? Undersecretary. Thank you, Mr. Fan. On which bidder we will award our contract to, I'll ask the controller to explain. I think in our study, but for the time being, we have 4 suppliers in mind from Canada, the US, Italy, and France. We will go for open tender, and any company can put in the bid. For the models which satisfy requirements, basically we have our focus on these 4 suppliers. So having heard Mr. Fan, obviously we will expand the scope of our search, but I believe the professionals in the GFS will look into this and see whether what is available in the market. Well, we lay down all our specifications in the tender documents, and then the government procurement office will invite public tender, and there will be a vetting committee. After that committee has made a decision, they will submit the results to the Financial Monitoring Services Bureau, and then subsequently the successful bidder will be informed of the result. In our study, we only need to find out which models are in the market, is available in the market to suit our needs. We've looked at 8 models, like I said. 5 already in service. There are 3 which are new models, 2 of which are already the suppliers are accepting orders. So basically, eventually it will depend on whether they satisfy our requirements. Regarding rescue work along highways, I'll ask the controller to answer the question.
Well, rescue on highway, this is one of our areas of work. Mr. Fan mentioned a moment ago it would be better to deploy smaller scale helicopter, but it may not necessarily be the case. In our tender document, we would specify the type of work that the helicopters will be tasked to do. Highways rescue would be one of them. In our tender document, we have to stipulate that the service will not be compromised. Any further questions? If not, then let me put this to members. Do we, in principle, support the idea of having the proposal referred to the Finance Committee for decision? Right? My understanding is that members are in support. Chairman, I'm not a member of this panel, so in theory I cannot indicate my preference. So members are in principle supportive of this being discussed by the Finance Committee. So you will consider submitting the funding proposal to the Finance Committee. That brings us to the any other business. Well, just a reminder that the panel did conduct a visit to the Fire Services Department to understand the situation. On June the 10th, we have set up a visit to the Marine Police headquarters. We will be visiting an interception drill that will take place on June the 10th. We welcome members of the panel as well as non-panel members. Time? In the morning, you will be informed of the specifics. The idea is to enable panel members to understand better about the day-to-day work of the departments. Now, we talked about helicopters and the government flying service today. We will consider setting up a visit to deepen our understanding of the department. All right, then, any other business? I've got no AOB item. All right, and on this note, I now end the meeting. Thank you all very much for coming. Date of the next meeting, June the 4th.